The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now I can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truths. All right, this is our second day of Sesshin. It's really, we've been sitting one full day now, full 24 hours, minus sleep. So today I want to talk a little bit about the body and the breath. In the Dogen Zenji's universal instructions for Zazen, he has this line: rock your body left and right, and then settle into steady, immovable sitting. Well, we have to be careful about this line, settle into steady, immovable sitting, because it can be taken way too literally, that we're supposed to be still or not move at all. I'll give you an example how it can be taken really literally. When my teacher was training in Japan, she shared that she sat in a Rinzai Zen monastery as a layperson, and they were really, at least from her accounts, it sounded very, very strict. She said it was so silent that you could hear a pin drop. But when she sat, at least when she first began sitting, she couldn't, you were expected to sit a minimum of half lotus when you were sitting. That's one thing. That's, Dogen talks about sit either half lotus or full lotus, right? So if we're to take Dogen's teachings literally, then there's no such thing as sitting in a chair. There's no such thing as Burmese style or crossing your ankles and all these things. So it's another example. But she had to sit half lotus for one thing, and there's merit to attempting to do that as long as you're not hurting your body. But it's hard to do without preparation, and you really need to do some preparation, some physical preparation before you can, do that. Otherwise, you're just hurting yourself. You're just forcing your body into a position that's quite unnatural. But she said that when she first started sitting, she would put one foot on top of the other thigh, and her knee wouldn't go down. So she sat with her knee raised. They didn't have any cushions to put underneath it, or if they did, they didn't allow it. And after a few months of sitting in that way, very, very uncomfortable, she didn't want to, she would sit for 2 periods of Zazen and in the morning like that. That was every day for several months. And then after a while, her legs started doing this thing where it was moving up and down. Her knees started, because her hips started to open up from doing that, and so her knee was going up and down. And she couldn't. It wasn't something that was voluntary. It was involuntary. Yet from the outside, it looked like she was moving. So the monk came around with a kyosaku and hit her on the back for moving. But she bowed politely and received it, and then continued to move her knee because she couldn't stop. And then the monk realized, it's not something that she can help. She's not moving on purpose. But that's an example of where when we look at the posture from the outside, we can get caught into thinking somebody is still or moving. So settle into steady, immovable settle into steady, immovable sitting. So what does it mean? What does it mean to sit immovably? And in previous months, we talked about the Faith and Mind Sutra, not the sutra, the poem, Faith and Mind. And there's a section in there, I'm sure you remember it, where it goes, there is movement, or there's stillness within movement, and there's movement within stillness. You remember that piece? Yeah. So even if we're still, even if we're totally still, if we're really observant from the inside, then we're going to notice movement. And even if somebody from the outside, it might look like we're being perfectly still. But if you look from the inside, you can notice there's movement, even if you're attempting to be still. So that's what we're going to kind of look at a little bit more today. We have to be careful about these descriptions of meditation, and try, if we're trying to literally do the instructions to the exact T. This is a real problem in any religion, is when we look at a text and think that the face value of what the text is saying is what is expected, or we should be doing, or we should be thinking a certain way. And we forget that these religious texts that were written, they were written, many of them, 1 or 2 millennia ago, for a different culture and a different time. So we need to have our interpretation eyes on it and not take these texts too literally. But the Faith and Mind gives us a little bit of leeway there, right? There's within stillness, there's movement. So when we look more carefully, more closely into our physical posture and our physical sitting, what things, this is a question to think about, what might we notice? Just on the physical level, what might we notice? So I want to name a couple of things here, but the first foundation of mindfulness is the body. And it's a good place to begin. It's not exactly shikantaza, but it's a place to start meditation. Because it's very concrete. It gives us something concrete to focus on, the physical body. The second foundation of mindfulness is the feelings. And the feelings generally are referred to as either pleasant or unpleasant, pleasurable or unpleasurable. And to say that a feeling is pleasant or unpleasant requires some degree of judgment. But if we go to just the level of sensation, that's where I think we want to focus on here. Shikantaza is a lot about the physical body, the comportment of the body, and sensation. And of course, not judging what we're experiencing. Right? Do not judge good or bad. Do not judge true or false. That's also part of our instructions. So first thing we want to do when we're sitting in, or when we're thinking about, we're kind of getting educated about meditation, is to distinguish between two kinds of movement that appear in Zazen. There's the voluntary movement, and then there's the involuntary movement. So voluntary movement is often associated with the habits that we have. When we feel an itch, if we're not meditating, when we feel an itch, we don't think about it, we scratch it. If this itch is on my forehead, I'm just going to scratch it. If we feel some irritation in our body, we want to move. If we have a pain in our shoulder, maybe we move it. And we're constantly moving in our daily life in response to something. We're constantly responding to things. That's just natural. And there's habits that are formed along the way with that. With Zazen, we are deliberately stopping this kind of voluntary movement. So that, for example, when you feel an itch, we don't scratch it. Right? We just notice it. And we see what happens. We observe it. When we feel some kind of a pain in the body, now this is where it gets tricky. We want to be careful here, because if there's joint pain, like I'm feeling in my knee right now, then maybe we want to switch something. If there's pain in our spine, that also may be something that we need to look into. But we, when to move and when not to move. Generally speaking, assuming we are able to find some degree of ease in Zazen, inevitably something's going to come up. Maybe it's sleepiness. Has anybody been struggling with sleepiness today? Yeah, a little bit. We just want to that's something that happens in Zazen too. And maybe you want to lay down, or maybe you want to fight the sleepiness and do something to wake yourself up. But what if we were just to watch it and notice ourselves being drowsy and not try to do anything extreme about it? I mean, that's an option as well. On one level, what we're doing is we're stimulating our parasympathetic nervous system when we're sitting Zazen, especially if we've been highly activated the past weeks or months, if we've been very stimulated and we haven't given ourselves a chance to really rest deeply. That's what the body's going to probably do in Zazen. I mean, it's one thing that the body does is it's correcting itself. So when you sit in Zazen, the body says, oh, we're not moving. This is getting really boring and dull. And now I know what to do. And you get good rest. You get it's almost an enforced rest. It's not the kind of rest that it's like an uncomfortable rest. It's not, it's never what you want it to be. I'm going to go on this retreat, and I'm going to sit and meditate, and it's going to feel so good. And then we sit there and we're thinking, this doesn't feel comfortable. I don't feel happy. I don't want to sit upright. I'd rather lay down. But here I am. And now I'm sitting upright, and all right, now my eyes are starting to get heavy. And you have a choice there. You could either fight that and damn yourself for getting sleepy, or you can just allow yourself to kind of move into it or feel it fully and see where it takes you, not fighting it. So anyways, there's these habits that we start to recognize. That's the gift of doing Zazen, is that we start to recognize voluntary movements, and we deliberately stop them. We stop ourselves from moving or changing or trying to make ourselves feel differently than we do right now. And that's the study of the self. That's the observation of the self. So that's an interesting thing to do. I mean, nobody wants to do that unless they come to Sesshin to do it, and then they want to do it. And then they realize, wait a minute, did I really want to do it? I'm not sure if I really wanted to do this. What makes us keep doing? I mean, What makes us want to come and do? There's something very interesting, I think. Even though I go through the same cycles every time I come to a sesshin, it's like, oh, But there's something very interesting about noticing our habits and not reacting out of them. There is some degree of freedom there. This is where free will, you recognize, like, oh, we have a choice. There's free will. I don't have to automatically move every time some little thing bothers me. And that's the gift. I mean, we're developing that muscle that we can then take into our life and to our relationships that are always problematic. And like, do I have to react the way I always, like I habitually react? That's where it can become quite powerful. We can ask her. So we're developing this kind of muscle. It's not a physical muscle, but it's not a mental muscle. But there's this stepping away from that habit reaction. And Sesshin just gives you the confidence to be able to do that in your daily life. If you can do it here, and you can, this is a kind of a safe environment, a contained environment. If you can do it here, then chances are you'll have, it's more likely that you can do it in other places. At least that's the hope. But what I want to get into now is the involuntary movements that are always happening when we're saying. We focus on the voluntary and like not moving. We tend to focus on, oh, I'm supposed to not move, and then we lose sight of, well, what about those movements that are much more subtle, that are happening? Like our breathing. Our breath is moving, our lungs are moving through the breath, our abdomen's moving. Our heart is moving when we're sitting. The whole body is actually pulsing as we sit. And so we're going to check out some of those movements. So when we interpret stillness literally, when we interpret that we're going to be still now for the next 45 minutes, when we interpret that literally, what happens is that we create a lot of stress in our body. Our joints start to get real stiff. And what we really need to do is learn how to soften the muscles. That's another thing we're doing, is we're learning how to relax our muscles, to soften the muscles in Zazen. Breathing in, I calm my whole body down. That's a practice that you can do. Breathing in, I calm my body down. Right, you can do that, just as you breathe in, feel your whole body calming down. And it's kind of an intentional directive kind of practice. And it can help our shikantaza, right? Because eventually we want to let go of that stuff. We want to let go of that intentional directive awareness and just sit. But in order to get to just sitting, you have to have some preparation. Remember yesterday I mentioned every action has a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a preparation period, there's a doing, and then there's a closing. And even shikantaza there's a preparation period for that. So when we sit down, maybe we're not at shikantaza yet. And so we need to prepare the body. Breathing in, I calm my whole body down. Breathing out, I calm my whole body down. Calm as you breathe in. Ease as you breathe out. And as you breathe in the word, you could say the word calm to yourself. As you breathe out, you could say the word ease. calm, ease. And that is a kind of a mental reminder to the body, hey, I got a choice here. So Zazen itself is quite a fluid activity. If we think we're being still, and we don't get the sense of the fluidity of Zazen, we need to recheck that. What does it mean that Zazen is fluid? The other thing we need to be careful about is with this idea of being in movement, in constant motion, is Isho Fujita, he says in one of his Dharma Eye articles, he says, we don't try to intentionally destroy immovability either. We don't try to intentionally destroy immovability either. So we're not trying to move intentionally. So it's a very, very subtle practice. I want to offer some drawings here on the whiteboard. I mentioned the preparation period for Zazen, and Dogen mentions rocking our body left and right at the beginning. And my teacher would also suggested rocking forward and backward at the beginning of Zazen. This is also preparation. So just to give you a kind of a visual on this. So let's pretend this is a person doing meditation, sitting on their lotus. Right, that's all of us. There's the roots down there. Here's the muddy water. And we're sitting up on the lotus. And right, our face is very calm. We put a little smile on our face, make ourselves happy. That's an important practice for Zazen too. We have to, not we have to, but we ought to try smiling. It makes the practice a lot easier. There's a little half open eyes, so the eyes are half open. And they're not directed at anything. You might see what's in the periphery of the vision. You're not looking at one point. It's not like you're looking down at the floor here. And then there's the cosmic mudra. So when you first start to sit, you rock. You rock your body this way and this way. And, forward and backward. We're moving the body. And so we want to make sure that when we sit, we're at a 90 degrees. We're 90 degrees with the ground. Because what happens sometimes is that we get off. We go even just a little bit. If our head is over this way and then our body this way, right? That's going to start creating pain in our body if we're a little bit over this way. Right? It's a slightly different angle. So but we intentionally rock our bodies left and right at the start of Zazen, so that we can find this center of gravity here. Right? That's where it's, and if you really start to pay attention to gravity, it can inform your sitting. It can inform what you do in sitting. And even now we can kind of think about that. Right, so as you're sitting, like, see if you can find gravity. Find. Yeah, we're not aware of gravity, and it's like we have to go out into outer space, like the astronauts, to really feel gravity, because we're surrounded by it. We're totally tied to it, but we don't recognize it. So when we rock, right, it's thanks to the muscles in our hips that we don't fall over, and the muscles in our low back that we don't fall over. So if we lean one side, those muscles here in our left hip are gonna, if you're leaning to the right, the muscles in your left hip are gonna hold you up partly. And then you go to the other side, the muscles in the right hip. And so you get a sense of that swinging in the axis of the spine. So it's the spine that's moving, not just the head, the whole axis of the spine. The whole trunk is rocking left and right. And gradually you come back to center. And as you're passing through center, you're getting a sense of where center is. So as you rock your body left and right, you should get a sense of where center is about. Right? And you just kind of go back and forth and reconfirming it. The other thing then is the ears, shoulders, and hips, and this is where we get into a lot of trouble. So we want to have the ears, shoulders, and hips in alignment. And this is not an ordinary way of sitting, because usually when we sit, we do this. You know, if we're on a computer, or if we're reading a book, we're doing some arching of the upper back often. And Zazen, what we're doing is different. The spine is upright. We're not intentionally looking at something in front of us or down in front of us. The eyes are lowered, but the periphery of the vision is in view. Right? So it's a view that sees everywhere. That takes in the whole, not just one particular point. So soft gaze. And so noticing the tilt of the chin is going to be really, really important here. You know, especially if you have upper back issues going on, right? Having the head weighs something like 5 pounds. That's a lot of weight. And so having it balanced properly on the spine, on the tip of the spine, the spine actually goes all the way up to the middle, almost to the middle of the back of the head. That's where it ends. And just a little tilt here and there makes a world of difference as to how the muscles that are supporting it. You can give your muscles an opportunity to rest. If you're properly balanced, if your head's properly balanced, there's not a lot of effort that is necessary to hold the head upright. Same is true for the spine. If the torso is properly balanced, leaning neither left nor right, forward nor backward, then there's not a lot of effort that's required to keep the back up. So that's one thing. And here's the thing. In Zazen, when we're sitting, we're not intentionally moving. This is our involuntary movement. We're constantly correcting ourselves. We're self-correcting so that we can sit upright in relationship to gravity. It's a very small and subtle movement. The movement forward and backward, left and right. It's still happening. To an outsider, it might not seem like you're moving, but if you take the time to notice, you might see that, oh, yeah, I am correcting myself. There's a constant correction. There's a constant movement going on here. Even though it seems like from the outside, I'm not moving. But my body is trying to find an upright posture that is minimizing, making the most, and economizing its energy. Otherwise, you can't do this for extended periods of time without a lot of pain and sweat and all that. So we're developing this, and there might be some pain along the way. So don't fool yourself either. I mean, sometimes we got to get through. We are developing the muscles in our back that help us to be upright. And that takes that, and the sitting one after the other is we're exercising muscles in our legs, in our hips, in our back. I mean, who here doesn't feel a little bit sore after a day of Sesshin? So those muscles are trying to correct and allow for us to sit upright. And the more that we sit upright, those muscles will respond, they'll grow, they'll get stronger, and the less effort it takes. But also it has to do with finding that balance, that really delicate and subtle balance that is cognizant of pull of gravity downwards. Right. It's really just like standing on the top of something really tall. And you just got to be perfect. You try to be, here we go, perfectly still. That's not right either, but it's minimizing the movement so that there's a sense of balance there. And only you're going to know what that feels like. Okay, so that's the bodily movement. Let's take a look at the breath. Let's take a look at breath. So breath goes in through the nose, the chest, the abdomen, and in fact the whole body. The whole body. I want to offer you a quote from Issho Fujita. He says, if you're sitting correctly, it is not only the chest, the diaphragm, and the belly that move, but actually the whole body is moving very slightly. When you take a breath, first the belly and lower ribs expand, and that movement then spreads in a chain reaction through the abdomen, the neck, the head, the upper limbs, the pelvis, to the lower limbs, in the same way as when a rock is thrown into a still pond, the waves ripple outwards. And then when we exhale, that all gets reversed. But we need to refine our attention to feel that. You don't have to refine your attention. Just trust that Zazen, in the process of sitting, if you trust the sitting process, this is important. If you trust the sitting process, your attention will naturally become more refined, and you'll be able to feel that. You'll be able to feel as you're breathing. It's not just this location right here, but even the limbs. The legs and the arms are all moving too. So the more we sit, the more we get to, our attention will be refined, and we will see that. And when we, here's the key though, when we start to experience that ourselves, it also has the benefit of relaxing the body. There's something relaxing about knowing that we're actually moving. Right? When we really, and this is the connection of body and mind. This is when body and mind become one. When our body is always present, but our mind is oftentimes on something other than on our body. And so the more refined our attention becomes, it's the coming together of body and mind through breath awareness. It's the whole body breathing, not a brain observing a small breath. Right? When we first start sitting, we might think, oh, I'm a brain observing my small breath. But eventually this body and mind come together really, and there's a I don't know, the walls that are set up between our body and mind just start to dissolve. And mind isn't located in the head anymore. Mind is the whole body. And I think that there are the first 4 practices in the Sutra on Mindful Breathing, I think can be very, very helpful for our Zazen practice. So I want to share those 4 practices. The first one, they're kind of it's step-by-step meditation. Dogen says Zazen is not step-by-step meditation. So again, this is kind of preparation. And you can do this. You can practice this when we're sitting here. It gives you a direction to your mind. So the first one is to become aware of the direction of your breathing. Is your breath going in or is it going out? This might be good to start out with in the morning when you first come to sitting and your mind's not quite present yet. Is my breath going in or is my breath going out? And just to become aware of that. And once you've established that, maybe it takes a few moments or a few minutes, then becoming aware of the length of the breath. So there's a difference there. The first one, you're just becoming aware of the direction. Which way is it going? The second one, now you become aware of the entire length of the breath. Feel the breath going all the way in. Feel the breath going all the way out. And you can do that for a few moments or a few minutes, or for however long you want to. The third practice is now you become aware of the whole body breathing. Kind of like Isho Fujita just mentioned, that when you really start to refine, when your attention becomes more and more refined. Because again, it's not us refining. We are not doing the refining, but the sitting practice, the shikantaza, is refining our practice. It's refining our mind. And we just trust that. The repetition helps to refine. And then we start to feel the whole body breathing, becoming aware of the whole body breathing. And this naturally leads into the fourth one, which is the body calms down. Right? The body calms down. So I just want to offer these as a way to, when you're feeling agitated in shikantaza, you're finding like, I don't know if I'm doing it right, or is there something I'm missing? Well, this can help to ground our practice. And you could also, as you're calming, as you're becoming aware of your whole body, your body calms down. You could also go into different parts of your body. Like you could start with the top of your head, focusing on the muscles in your face. A lot of times we hold a lot of tension and tightness in our forehead. when we're sitting. So, and I noticed that just in the past couple of sittings, wow, I got a lot of tension just in my forehead. And then just kind of letting the eyes down, allowing the forehead to soften. And then going down into the shoulders. The shoulders, man, it's just so, it's a subtle kind of tightness there. But be careful because, I notice even as I'm talking here, I'm going like this. And then I need to go up. All right. And then the shoulders come down. So if you're going to have your shoulders come down, make sure you're sitting upright. Sitting upright, shoulders down. Relaxing the abdominal muscles and all the organs in the abdomen. The abdomen, we hold tight there. Even now, I'm just noticing, wow, as I started to bring my attention down into my abdomen, I noticed that it was tight. And because I noticed the release. As soon as I put my attention down there to soften the muscles around my abdomen, they softened. And that told me, oh, I got more work to do. And you can go out into your limbs as well, your hands, your legs. And then once you find you're at a place of ease in your body, then do shikantaza. Zazen is simply the Dharma gate of joy and ease. But you got to get there. If you're not feeling joy and ease, then these are the practices I can recommend that we do. Don't wait for joy and ease to come like it's going to come magically. You actually have to put some effort into cultivating joy and ease. That's why I said the joy comes in the smile, and then the ease comes in with a practice of breathing, of checking out different parts of our body. Zazen is simply the Dharma gate of joy and ease. And then once we are there, then we can just sit. We don't have to do anything. And our mind is more open to not having to latch on to certain kinds of thoughts that we're having or whatever. We can let them